As of 1959, the OCA had not yet developed into a means of bringing new people on board. That started in 1960, when Hubbard had testing sections set up in Scientology churches and said that they should promote themselves as test clinics, offering free IQ and personality tests which could be used to convince people that they were in need of Scientology. His first policy on the matter, written on October 28, 1960, said this: "Remarks that Scientology can improve this or that characteristic, or auditing can remedy that, or processing can change this, or training can stabilize that, should be used repeatedly during the evaluation for the sake of impingement. A clever evaluator can surmise such things as domestic grief, trouble with possessions, etc., much more easily than a fortune teller. Test evaluation is modern scientific fortune telling. It deals with past, present, and future. A low-profile, low-IQ future is, of course, a dreary one, profitless, and less changed. We can erase the fate of the past and alter utterly anyone's future. So it does not matter how hard one leans on the person. Remember, low cases want only to escape the consequences of life." The methods and scripts used to evaluate tests have been developed and revised over the years for maximum effectiveness. Various conclusions and evaluations were written over the years for each point of the profile. These weren't surveyed or tested to see if they were accurate. They're merely guidelines that test evaluators use to see if the person who they're evaluating will agree with them. For example, a person with a low H trait is told that he is intolerant, tactless, easily annoyed if he can't get to do what he wants, and will go to great length to invalidate other people's efforts. These would all be points that a test evaluator would throw out at the person, see what the person says, and if they agree or can find instances where they acted like that, then use those as reasons why the person needs to buy Scientology services. Hubbard eventually devised a scale of awareness characteristics, claiming that people not in Scientology were so bad off that they weren't even aware of how messed up they were, and only Scientology could help them. He wrote that it was the job of the people doing test evaluations to bring a person from low awareness levels to need of change and demand for improvement. By some estimates, some 20% of the people who got started in Scientology did so because they received one of these test evaluations. I happen to think, based on my own experience, that the percentage is much higher, and would personally rate it at more like 50%. The personality test has been an extremely lucrative and successful way for Scientology to make people feel worse about themselves and come to realize how bad off they really are and how much they need Scientology. Now, having told you what Scientology's personality test is all about and how it's used, let me now emphatically state that this OCA and all the other tests that Scientology uses are pseudoscientific nonsense and have no value whatsoever. Any claims that Scientology staff make that these tests were scientifically formulated or are carried out in any way similarly to how real psychological testing is done should not be believed, because they are lying to you. As I described earlier, this is a field that has been under development for over 200 years, and Scientology's contributions to it add up to exactly nothing. As one statement of proof for what I'm talking about, in 1971, Sir John Foster had 3 expert members of the Council of the British Psychological Society go to a Scientology center in London, go through the full testing line, and evaluate what they found. They each gave random answers to the test in 3 distinct ways, which in any standard test should have given a mean or average result. Instead, they found that the test is weighted to give below average or poor scores on the left and right-hand side of the graph. Why does it do this? Hubbard wrote a bulletin about how to read the OCA on December 19, 1971, where he said, "An OCA with any point on the left side of the graph in low or undesirable range means the PC is out of valence. Any low point on the right side of the graph means the PC is crazy." Out of valence means the person is in someone else's personality or is somewhat schizophrenic. So the test is actually designed to produce this result on any normal Joe who's taking the test for the first time. While the rest of their findings are too long to cover in detail, among the statements made in their review was the following. The Oxford Capacity Analysis is not a personality test known in psychological circles. It is not distributed by reputable test agencies in this country. There is no research literature available about it, nor is it listed in the Mental Measurements Yearbook, which is internationally accepted as the authoritative source on psychometric devices. While any one of these points does not in itself indict a psychometric instrument, the failure of the Oxford Capacity Analysis to meet all of them does, in our opinion, constitute an extremely strong case for assuming it to be a device of no worth. The people who wrote these tests and the Scientology staff who administer them have no formal or even informal training in psychology or the subject of testing. I'd be willing to bet that having watched this video so far, you know more about their tests than they do. In the Foster report, one psychologist stated, "In general, it was patent that the test administrator had no notion what the test was, how it was designed, what it measured, or what the scores meant. He had been trained to produce this ill-informed commentary, which to a gullible, anxious person might sound genuinely insightful. In fact, he was pointing out to an unknown member of the public inadequate facets of his personality shown up by an instrument which he did not understand." Additionally, something you might not know is that real psychological testing is a very large field which is subject to a great deal of regulation. No reputable psychologist would accept the procedure of pulling people off the street with a leaflet, giving them a personality test, and reporting back in terms that show the people to be inadequate, unacceptable, or in need of urgent attention. In a clinical setting, a therapist would only discuss a patient's inadequacies with him with the greatest of circumspection and support, and even then, only after sufficient contact for the therapist-patient relationship to have been built up. To report back a man's inadequacies to him in an automatic, impersonal fashion is unthinkable in responsible professional practice. To do so is potentially harmful. It is especially likely to be harmful to the nervous, introspective people who would be attracted by the leaflet in the first place. The prime aim of the procedure seems to be to convince these people of their need for the corrective courses run by the Scientology organizations.